I'm reading an extract from the book where the principal character, that is love falls in love. He's waiting for his friend outside Deepal's in Connaught Place near Janpat. And this is what happens. I'll just read 3 or 4 paragraphs. I reached Deepal's on time, as is usual for me. When one deals with judges who eat your ears off if you're 5 minutes late, one understands the value of punctuality. But Jeet was late as usual. He'd pay for whatever we had after the cold coffee, I told myself, and headed to get my shoes polished. Several shoe-shine boys sit outside Deepal's. It gives the boys something to do while they gaze at the women. If they do nothing, they look like losers. Once you reach Deepal's, it doesn't matter if you're waiting for someone or if you've just come to ogle. You take out a tenner and tell the shoe-shine boy to take his time. My shoe-shine boy had just dabbed a bit of shining cream when I first saw her. She was tall, almost as tall as I am, with glistening black hair and an hourglass figure. Her lips moved lusciously on a straw as she sipped cold coffee, but it was the pink chiffon sari with the silver motif that did it for me. If I haven't mentioned my preference for women in Indian attire, here it is. If it happens to be chiffon, it moves into irresistible territory. One falls in love with the soul of a woman. And how do you see the soul? It's in the eyes. They are the windows to the soul. I moved my eyes to her face and took in a cute snub nose and the pair of kohl-covered expressive eyes that sat perfectly above it. She wore trendy yet traditional styled pearl earrings. But it was the color of her eyes that pulled me in, those honey-colored eyes.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of PILF, Online Date with Words. I'm sure that we all have taken back a lot of memories and knowledge from the last 2 days. I'm certain that this last day will be diverse and rich in learning as well. Welcome to the first session of the day in Studio One. Let us begin our day with a foodie topic for all the food lovers out there. Our first discussion of the day is the secrets of Parsi and Bengali flavors. And our guests for this discussion are Mr. Antoine Lewis, Ms. Anahita Dhondy, and Mr. Arpan Roy. Antoine Lewis wears many hats. He writes on food and drink for a number of local and national newspapers and magazines. His repertoire of articles has extended to neighborhood food stories, comment and trend features on food and wine, columns, restaurant reviews, explorations into regional Indian cuisines. He is the Associate Director of Literature Live, the Mumbai International Lit Fest, where among other things, he is in charge of programming. Anahita Dhondy is former chef, partner Soda Bottle Openawala, the Bombay Irani cafe and bar chain that promotes Parsi cuisine. A passionate cook since the age of 10 and Le Cordon Bleu Grand diploma holder, she has won several awards and accolades, including featuring on the Forbes 30 Under 30 Asia List 2019. Arpan Roy is a former atomic physicist based in Singapore who discovered his passion for writing humor during his PhD. Although away from India for the last 2 decades, he nurtures an almost academic curiosity about Indian society and culture. Creator of Bong Sense and columnist for CNN, Arpan has also created Bong Sense, a page to chronicle Bengali culture in bite-sized illustrations and doodles. I request Mr. Antoine Lewis to begin the mouth-savoring discussion.
Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the world you're joining us from. This is quite an interesting topic, the secrets of Parsi and Bengali cuisine, and hopefully we'll have Anahita joining us shortly so that we can talk about both cuisines. But what's interesting is cuisines that originated on two coasts of India, like literally one on the west, one on the east. You would think that there is nothing that actually holds them together, but maybe through our conversations with these two authors, we'll find out if there are indeed similarities or if they are completely dissimilar. And India is a large country. We have hundreds of, maybe probably thousands of cuisines. So if they are unique, that is fascinating in itself. But Arpan, let me start with you. Tell us a little bit about your book, and I've got it here, right here. Yeah, there. What made you write this book?
Hi, Antoine. Hi, everybody. Hi, wherever you're in the world. So, so the non-serious guide to Bengali book, it's not supposed to be, it's not like a traditional food book like you see it, like with, recipes and stuff, very traditional in a framework. So what I tried to do was actually capture the Bengali cuisine, some details about it, as well as the eating habits, and even trace back the origin of some of the food. But the thing is that I am not a chef. I can barely cook to make myself survive enough. But I'm the one who likes food and appreciates food a lot. So the thing is that it's from a person who eats point of view. It's a book. And another thing is that it's also, I added a bit of humor along with it to understand the origin of everything Bengali, because we are to some extent a very quirky kind of people situated in one corner of India, pretty much next to a lot of different countries actually. And so the book is to some extent that. And also another attempt is that since I've been away from India for a while, my original memories start fading. I've been away for 18
Mhm.
years. And the thing is that this book was also supposed to be some kind of a time capsule before I lose it all these
Hmm.
memories, thanks to the high cholesterol which the food gives me. Yeah. So that pretty much summarizes
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Okay. So would you say this is a book for Bengalis or for non-Bengalis? I mean, who's your real target audience with this book?
So one thing would be I would ideally be targeting. So I can actually have two set audience for this book. So one is
Hmm.
ideally the person people who grew up with the Calcutta food scene, the Calcutta restaurants. Something understanding what a chicken a chop is and something like that. Someone who is familiar. So we started from Calcutta or Bengal, and we have been a lot of us have been relocated all across the world. So for a bit
Hmm.
of a nostalgia trip, or even teaching the next generations what we used to be like, that's where the time capsule part comes in. That's one very nice straight audience over there. Another one is that since we have become so multicultural, a lot of us are in marriages or married to people who are not of our culture, and then these people from outside observe our little quirky things like using of mustard oil for everything, or something called kashundi, which is like the Bengali version of the Dijon mustard and everything. So these
Right.
people don't understand us because they're more familiar with the standard tikka masala or rogan josh or something, or even a dosa or something, which is way more common spread. So for these partners who are very, very confused, understanding their own partners, this book is going to
Well, it's
actually help
difficult to
them.
understand a Bengali in all fairness.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I've never been on the other side, unfortunately. Yeah, I do not wish to be though. Yeah, that's
Okay.
pretty much it. Yeah.
Um, okay, so give us an overview of Bengali cuisine. I mean, if you look at where Bengal is situated, it's got Bihar and Orissa and Assam on its borders. And you can see a lot of similarity between these three cuisines and Bengali. So, what makes Bengali cuisine so unique?
So Bengal is situated in such a place, right? It has a lot of good connections with even countries like Burma, Myanmar, and then Southeast Asia. So there's a connection. There's a whole bunch of similarity in the food and the usage of roots, minimal roots in the diet, and minimal amount of spices, minimal amount of milk products used inside the thing. So now if I contrast it with, food from Bihar, right? B- B- uh, Food from Bihar is basically an extension of the food from Uttar Pradesh or the Hindi belt, right? It is not exposed to so much of non-veg, which Bengalis are kind of obsessed with. Orissa, I would say, it's particularly complete. almost a photocopy of Bengali food, or I think both of them are similar. I mean, there was a big contest, who does the Rasgulla belong to? People got emotional
Exactly.
about it. People got hurt. I don't know. Yeah. And then you have Assamese cuisine. Now, the Assamese cuisine is actually an extension of the Bengali cuisine with some modifications, right? I mean, you have some exotic meat coming in because it's in the northeast, like you have pork and all. But overall, there's a lot of similarity between that. And another one is actually Bangladesh, which is which is also
Right.
Bengali, to be honest. And their food is a bit more heatier and spicier with a lot of usage of garlic and ginger and everything, because they the korma style which they adopted from the Mughal cuisine. So that's pretty much a slight modification of the Bengali cuisine over there. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, if you had to say, tell someone that, okay, this is the core of Bengali cuisine, this is really what, at the heart of Bengali cuisine, these are the dishes that you would find. What would you say these are, or how would you describe that to me?
Yeah, so as stereotypical as it sounds, it has to be fish. That's what has been the brunt of all jokes with Bengalis, right? Oh, you guys eat fish with everything, or you will eat the fish in your aquarium, which is maybe true for some of my friends. But the thing is that, yeah, so it's essentially a deep love for river fishes, which is there, like, rohu and all, and some other slightly exotic fishes for special occasions. That's quintessential of a mache jhol, which is like a very light curry. You don't
Hmm.
add, most of the time we don't add tomatoes and stuff like that. A light curry, rice, obviously rice is very, very important. I actually Googled it and found out rice came to Bengal 5,000 years ago, uh, diminishing all our life expectancies, obviously, and which is similar to entire Southeast Asia. And rice, fish curry, and mishti, which is our sweets, right? It was one of the first places where you actually could curdle milk in a controlled manner. We learned that apparently from the Portuguese in the 16th century or 15th century of curdling milk. So mishti, mach, and mangsho, these are, I call it the holy trinity of Bengali food. And you really
The three
very
M's,
nicely
so to speak.
start with them. Yeah, three M's. Yeah. So yeah, so I would think, and apart from that, there is this luchi, which is like it's like a batura on a diet, basically, and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, these would be very, very quintessential. But if you actually talk about street food, the kati roll is
Hmm.
something which I've been looking around all over and trying to replicate myself, because I feel a part of me is missing, which is very, very like a Calcutta food scene thing. I mean, fuchka, golgappa, all these, there's like a lot of controversy what you put in it, but it's there all around. Kati roll is hard to get. So I would say that
Yeah.
is also very, very essentially Bengali. Yeah.
Okay. Since you touched upon the Bangla and the West Bengal connection, I mean, I think that the Bangla is the Bangla, and your are the Ghotis. Is that right? Or is it the other
So
way
this
around?
so basically the people who came during 1947 and a little bit after 1971 are called the Bangals, and while the rest of the people who were originally in the space, which is West Bengal now, are called the Ghotis. Yeah, and there
Okay.
are like,
So there's a big difference in the cuisine, and I know both sides think each is better than the other.
mhm. Yeah. So surprisingly, while I was growing up in India or Kolkata, right, I did not get exposed to that side. I mean, my father's family moved in 1947, but that got diluted uh, to like just being like a unifying thing. My mother's a Ghoti, so I'm like a hybrid creature, so I really didn't get to see that. But interestingly, while I live in Singapore, there's a lot of actually original Bangladeshi restaurants run by Bangladeshis, and I mean, then in Kolkata, for example, we would just know, okay, we have a mutton biryani, and that's pretty much it, and mutton biryani, chicken biryani. But on the other hand, in Bangladesh, you have something called kachi biryani, which is our mutton biryani, kind of, and then you have a tehari, and I think tehari is also there in different states of India as well. So I never knew such variety existed. And also putting garlic in dal, which is a very no-no for us, that's they do it, and surprisingly, it tastes pretty well, and everything is spicy times 10. The
Okay.
digestive system of people from Bangladesh has to be studied before we move to Mars or something, because that's what we should aim for. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Um, now, in your book, you talk a lot about eating habits and the culture of eating, and really about overeating and the inability of Bengalis to control their diet. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think among most normal human beings, I think there is some hormone called, I think it's called leptin, which indicates when your stomach is full. Due to, I don't know, natural selection or whatever it is, we are lacking it. So the thing is that we tend to overeat, we underestimate. So, a normal Bengali will never eat like a three luchis. Okay, that's like, I don't know, amateur territory. They somehow, I've known people who have gone up to 15, 16, and they're still alive after the age of 60, which is surprising. The thing. So yeah, so Bengali food comes in a lot of stages. We actually have a lot of things. So initially there's some vegetable, which is like a pretense of health. Apparently, it will solve all your. It's like the elixir, which will solve your sugar or diabetes, which everybody seems to have nowadays. And then followed by, then it's the dal, which has more fried stuff with it. Like vegetables are fried beyond recognition. If you look back, it's like this, you need CSI to actually trace back what that vegetable was. And then you go to the main thing, which is the fish or the meat, and which is overindulged. But that doesn't end, because we are already full. Like a normal human being would have given up like 10 minutes before that. And then we go into the sweets, which is like the mishti doi, which is very, very important. Somehow somebody took yogurt, uh, put it on steroids and made a mishti doi, which is incredibly delicious. And then you have the chutneys, which is the chutney for other people. It's not a sweet thing. For us, it's a very, very sweet thing. And once you have all of this, like, you need so much blood to actually digest all this food. Like rest of your organs are just give up. So what we have, absolutely require is something called a siesta, which is similar to like in Spain and all. So increasingly, that has not been happening, but apparently during before independence, and when you had originally British companies and all, they used to actually give you a siesta break. And my father incidentally had one back in the 80s, where you actually get to go back, rest for a while, come back refreshed, and work. So that's not happening, and maybe that's why we are so cranky nowadays. Yeah.
Okay, that does explain a lot. I mean, a good postprandial nap does kind of clear up everything for you.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, talking about some of the key things that I found interesting about Bengali food. Of course, there is the passion for fish, but there's also a passion for eggs, and I find that Bengalis really really love eggs. I was surprised to find that, and there's something called, I think, dhimer bhat, which is just eggs and rice and ghee, and all my Bengali friends just wax eloquent about it. I have never understood what's so great about it, but clearly it's a very Bengalis have a very very special relationship with this dish and with eggs.
Yeah, so the thing is that, I mean, I mentioned at some point of the book, Bengalis also tend to be somewhat fans of minimalism. I mean, even before IKEA was there, so they like things which are somewhat basic also. So the thing is that, yeah, we do love our eggs, and especially like duck eggs, man, which are more orangish and, looks beautiful, like the setting sun or the rising sun, whichever way you call it. But the thing is that we don't need much. If I go into some of the northern cuisine, they'll be adding cashew paste, which seems to be added to everything, not. And we just need the eggs, we just need a rice, we need like a little chunk of almond butter somehow, which I'm growing up with, and a little bit of or of ghee, and a little bit of salt, and that could be a meal. And essentially that is funnily the meal for a lot of people in the morning before they go out for work, because yeah, you don't have much of vegetables or roughage or something, but the egg has a lot of decent nutritional value and keeps you filled for something. Interestingly, I've seen this in Chinese cuisine as well. They have this thing called the porridge or the congee, where it's basically overcooked rice with a little bit of egg and a little bit of soy sauce. I think it's kind of like the modification of that, but it's not really. We do not really have any real connections with that, but it's similar. Yeah.
There's something universal about that as a meal. But is this a boiled egg or a fried egg, or what is done with the egg?
Oh, it's definitely a boiled egg. So we have this thing called dim sheddo, which is dim sheddo bhat. Essentially, that's a longer, maybe the Latin name of the dish. Dim sheddo means just boiled egg with rice. Yeah, I mean, frying eggs is it's too fancy for that particular meal. Yeah, a fried egg is obviously an omelette, and I don't know how whatever people want to put in that. Yeah, but this is a very
Okay.
very minimalist drink.
Yeah, but you rarely ever see this on restaurant menus. I mean, so this is a very home style dish. Is that right?
Yeah, it's the thing. So so essentially what happened
Oh,
was
eggs
Bengali
actually,
restaurant.
eggs in general, I've never really found them on a Bengali menu.
Yeah, yeah, it's always an accessory to some other dish or something, but it's never by itself. But I think at home we consume a lot of egg. But obviously, the best utilization of egg, which would you see on the roads, would be an egg roll, and that's just perfection when it comes to making something. That's pretty much it. Yeah, it's the best way of utilization of an egg, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay, okay, fair enough.
Mm.
Now you talked about the passion for fish and the many varieties of, I think, river and pond fish and tank fish as well, if I understand that correctly. Is there like a hierarchy of fish? Things which are really, I know Hilsa is really big up there, but I'm not sure about
Mm.
the others, Rohu, Pabda, Katla. So is
Mm.
there a hierarchy as such?
Yeah, there is. So let me talk about it this way. So surprisingly, even though we are very, very close to the coast, there is not too much of a preference for like saltwater fishes, like pomfret or whatever you get, which is very, very common in everywhere else in India or Southeast Asia or whatever. Right. But obviously there is a hierarchy of fish which goes on. So interestingly, hilsa is like hilsa and prawns or any bigger form of prawns, right? We have this lobster or whatever, tiger prawns, right? These are supposed to be at the highest of the hierarchy. I mean, honestly, lobsters and prawns are not even really fishes, but I mean, let's just call them fishes for this thing. We could call them chingri mach. So they're the hierarchy of at the top of the hierarchy, and it's only mostly for special occasions. One, because it's hard to get initially, and secondly, it's you have to wait for the right timing. So given Hilsa is basically has the exact same behavior as the salmon. Basically, it lives in the sea and then it swims up upstream in a river to actually lay eggs. And that's when we catch the hilsa, which is during the monsoon time. And a hilsa filled with eggs is probably one of the most, you know, desired fish you can ever have in Bengali cuisine. So that's really for special occasion, and these are expensive fishes. Next would be the pabda and all this kind of fish, which you
So
cook with
before we get
your
there,
yeah.
just give me a sense of some of the dishes that you would cook perhaps with these fish.
Okay, so when it comes to so I grew up eating, so hilsa is usually, turns out that you can fit hilsa into a two-course meal kind of thing. So you start with the fried hilsa, and you actually use the oil of the fried hilsa to actually have your rice with, which is very, very interesting. So we have a thing in Bengali called mache tele mach bhaja, like using the oil of the fish to actually fry the fish. So I perhaps it came from there. So next is a very minimalist, again, it's a very minimalist hilsa, I would call it curry, which is just basically a little bit of oil, a little bit of eggplants, and I think that's pretty much it, with a little bit of yeah, black sesame seeds or yeah, something like that. So that's it. And the third thing is like you actually have mustard, so you can put mustard paste on everything and cook it. So it's called the shoshe ilish,
Sure.
which is the same approach we do actually for prawns as well. You have a shoshe prawn, but another interesting thing about prawns is that, and I didn't even know this earlier, was we have this quintessential dish called the chingri mach. Chingri mach is prawns, malai curry, and I was thinking it's like a coconut milk. This is the only
Right.
thing which kind of stands out of the way. It's prawns cooked in coconut milk, and it's also a very highly desired thing. But I always thought that malai curry, it's probably contact of coconuts, malai, which is like the inside of the coconut or something like that. But looking deep, and so there's some suggestion that it's actually derived from food habit from Malaya, which is Malaysia, where they use a lot of
Oh,
coconut.
really?
Oh yeah, and which kind of blew my mind, because I eat Malay food every day almost in Singapore, and everything like
Right.
the beef rendang or whatever, it's all cooked with coconut milk. So that kind of blew my mind, and that kind of stood out. That's like the most indulgent Bengalis can be when it comes to cooking a fish. Unless when you go to Bangladesh, they have a little bit of korma and all with fish. But in West Bengal, that is the most indulgent you can ever be with the coconut milk. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, go on with the other fishes.
Yeah, so next goes on to the pabda and all, which is kind of semi-fancy. You do on Saturday, or someone gets 10 out of 10 in a maths exam or something like that. So that kind of thing, like, it's not like, I mean, they don't deserve a hillside. Hillside probably, and somebody got a PhD in Russian literature or something weird. Yeah, so that's the thing. Yeah, so you have your pabda and you have all these semi fancy fishes, but what is like the staple, which is like the infrastructure holding a Bengali together, is like the carp fishes, which is like Asian carps, we call it. So it's like rohu and katla. Rohu and katla are pretty similar, just mild difference in species. And that can be cooked every day, and it's usually a very light curry which you have with rice, especially during summer also, where you actually are avoiding heaty stuff, so-called heaty stuff like meat and all. And if you want to make it a fancy, we do it something called a jhal, machis jhal, which is, jhal means spicy, mirchi. So you just cook it with a little bit of onions and green chili. Again, the most indulgent you can actually be with rohu is it's called doi mach, which is, doi is like mishti doi, so it's a yogurt, fish cooked in yogurt, but that's also simple. One other fish we like, which kind of fits into all these categories, and like the whichever way you form, is bhetki, which is, I think, sea bass. So bhetki is very prized for the ability to make it into fillets. So these fillets are made into fish fry, which is another very quintessential Bengali thing to have. And so the bhetki can be in fish fries, and another way of cooking, which I have not seen rest of it, it's steaming, basically bhapa. So you wrap a fish, with a mustard paste. You wrap it in a leaf, and then you steam it. Which again I see in Southeast Asia a lot more. Like a lot of the dumplings, a lot of their the Malaysian dumplings, or in Malaysia and Burma or Thailand, steaming is actually a proper way of cooking things. So it's of meat. So this bhapa thing kind of stands out to me. I don't see that anywhere else in India. I mean, especially while making fish, or maybe I'm not aware of. So bhetki kind of fits into all of these categories. I mean, sometimes you can get a little bit inferior bhetki, have it with an everyday thing, but the fish fry can be of highest quality, and you can have it for the most special occasions. So yeah, these are kind of the fish you deal with on a daily basis. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, Bombay duck is also one. I mean, Calcutta is one of the few places outside of the West Coast that you get it, and I think you have a couple of dishes with Bombay duck.
I not aware of while growing up.
No?
Actually, I'm not. Yeah, I used to visit the fish market with my mother while growing up. I was very, very curious. Catfish is something we have, but catfish we reserve it for when you have a cold or something. Apparently, a catfish is supposed to be helping you to actually recover faster. Magur majid chol, that's what it's called. Bombay duck, I'm not aware of, unless it's under a different name in Bengal, which I would not be aware of. Yeah.
Okay. And what about the smaller fishes, like the anchovies and whitebait and all that? Is there a culture at all in Bengal of eating those?
Anchovies. I don't know, we call it anchovies or whitebait anymore here, but it's like, you get a smaller versions of the rohu and all. It's called puti mach, and you actually can have a little bit of fried of those and little curry of those as well. We do have that, but it's just, we call it puti mach. Puti mach is any fish which is small, kind of, yeah.
Oh, okay. So now the Bengalis have a very, how should I put it? Not exactly difficult, but a challenging relationship with vegetables. People you actually have a very kind of rich and a varied vegetarian cuisine, but I get the sense that vegetables aren't really very important in the hierarchy of Bengali food, and they're kind of sneered on. I mean, would I be right in kind of making that presumption?
So, yeah, to be honest, I mean, it's not an assumption. I think it's like, it's more of a personal preferences. Obviously, I mean, we have very good vegetable food and all, but it's like, it's an accessory to rest of the real food which comes in. That's pretty much it. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's even more so in Bangladesh. They cannot actually think of a meal which is completely vegetarian. But even for us, you cannot have a wedding which is fully vegetarian. Maybe although the new trendy people might be doing it today. So it's an accessory. Vegetables usually should come in the beginning of the meal. And people get sad when they don't see it ends with just a vegetable. It's like leaving a movie with a cliffhanger for a part 2. It's just basically that. You just have a whole bunch of disappointed people just not liking you anymore if you just only serve them vegetables. But we really do have a very good vegetarian cuisine. And interestingly, it's like a lot of this been developed by the widows who were not allowed to actually cook with, thanks to all our patriarchal traditions, who were not allowed to be cooking with any meat or, even onions and garlic and stuff. So that's why you see most of the food actually, which was mostly developed, they say, by the widows, that do not have much of onion and garlic and stuff in our cuisine. But we have an excellent vegetarian food as well. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, one of the classic dishes, of course, is aloo posto, which I think you see everywhere and is really. I think it kind of has a status which kind of crosses its vegetarian origins.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I mean, I would like to talk about posta as well. I mean, end of the day, it's actually a proper opioid. Honestly, it's a drug. Somebody actually, I don't know who it was, which enterprising Bengali thought, yeah, I will take the opium plant, which makes me sleep at night or whatever, because everybody was addicted to opium apparently in the 18th and 19th century. That's what they say all over Asia. And I'm going to take the seeds of that, and I'm actually going to make it into a dish with potato, which will help me sleep after the meal. So interestingly, even Bengalis would risk themselves to actually take poster. So like a lot of countries in the world, actually, like Singapore or Taiwan, even bringing posto is completely illegal and can result in a death penalty. That's
Really,
very,
it's
very
illegal.
interesting, because you can, yeah, because if you know a little bit of, hopefully, botany, I don't know, maybe it can be made into an opium plant at some point. So it's completely illegal. But I'm pretty sure some Bengali must be sneaking it in because they'll probably not be able to live without it, and they're risking their life. Yeah.
Okay, that's fascinating. I didn't know about that. That poster was actually banned in these countries. That's
Yeah,
real
Taiwan,
news.
Singapore, I think, and could be more countries as well, like maybe Middle East also. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So now there's one really big element in which Bengalis are very, very famous for, and which I understand there's a lot of snobbery also associated, particularly with weddings, I think, which you write in your book, and that is about sweets. And there's of course, sweets are a cuisine in itself, a category in itself. So tell us a little bit about I mean, as much as you can, really, because that is a universe, about Bengali sweets, and what would you consider like really the critical sweets of Bengal?
So when I left India, let's just call it that. I mean, it was still at quite basic level. People were not innovating that one. I mean, there was some innovation. So the quintessential Bengali sweet is the Rasgulla. So everything is, there is a whole. It has its own descendants and derivatives. So let me talk about that as well. So Rasgulla is basically, somebody managed to curdle milk and then they fried it up and dipped it in sugar syrup, and then you become this spongy delight, which absolutely everybody loves. And it used to be very hard to get till Haldiram decided to put it in cans and sell it all over the world, and they turned out to be pretty good. But anyway, the rest of the things are like modifications. So you have a kalo jam, which is basically like a gulab jamun, basically a gulab jamun. Then you have an elongated version soaked in milk, which is the cham cham, and then you have a fried version, which is yeah. Then you have fried version where the outside are covered with all kinds of things nowadays. And nowadays you even have innovative stuff. Like I found out there's something called a baked rasgulla. Somebody decided to take a
Yeah.
rasgulla and start baking it with something, and everybody's like, oh, this is wonderful. It's like what they've done with momos now. Like I was, there's like tandoori momos in Delhi right now. It's like I don't know, is it sacrilege or is it innovation? It's like it's a balance between this thing. So that is the rasgulla and its families, right? Yeah. And then you have the mishti doi, which is very, very again a fundamental thing. It's like somebody decided to take mishti doi, put some jaggery in it, and we really do have good jaggery during the winter time when it's when you actually get the jaggery, and
The Nolan
and
Gur.
the mishti doi was created. Yeah, Nolan good. That's the thing. And then we have this thing called the shonde. Shondesh is basically when you don't do anything with the well, it's technically when you curdle milk is cheese. When you don't do anything with the cheese, add a little bit of sugar and just shape it into different shapes. And then there's innovation along the way. There's derivatives of that. You have like the chocolate shonde. Somebody decided to add chocolate to it. Somebody and what is most desired now, especially during the winters, it would be the Noren Gure Shonde. So it's a sweet
Right.
itself, and inside somebody put in a capsule or like an empty cavity which is filled with liquid jaggery. So
Wow.
yeah, this is not good for you health wise, but it's really good for you mentally, because you'll be pretty happy after having one of these. Yeah, you break open and the liquid thing oozes out. I mean, it can like give easy competition to a Lindor or any of those fancy Swiss chocolates.
Wow,
Yeah.
I got to look out for this one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You need to look for them, especially during January, February, and I think starting from now. Yeah.
Okay, okay. But there's also a sense of competition and the brand names in Calcutta, I think, particularly like there's Casey Das, and I think there are plenty of others, which I can't recall, but all of them have their fan followings, and all of them are really famous for just a couple of things, though they offer everything. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so I mean, you can break the thing into two things. Firstly, the location is everything. So whichever sweet shop is closer to your house, you're gonna have a preference for that, because every time anybody comes in, you're going there for your sweets and your kachoris and your mishti doi, and that's pretty much standard. And more or less they have a very uniform standard. But you have special shops like, as you said, Casey Das, who actually interestingly invented the Rasgulla back in 1800 something. Yeah, and they are famous for something else. And then there's Bancharam, which is famous for like their chum chums and their apparently their kachoris and parotas and also other things also. The sweet shop doesn't just sell sweet; it sells kachoris and this and that. It's basically everything which would make you happy. That's pretty much it. It's like Willy Wonka's factory. And yeah, so every shop has its own specialty. Some of them might be better in Shondesh. So there's this shop called Shen Mahashai, which is Shondesh, and then that goes. So every shop has a specialty, and you only indulge in the specialities when you have a big occasion, or you're a person who likes eating. So if you have a wedding and people would be standing there and saying, oh, we got a rasmalai, which is rasmalai, a rasmalai from Suresh. So it's like a big pride that I'm being able to serve this guest the best rasmalai you can get in Kolkata or something like that. I mean, obviously someone from North Calcutta is not going to say, oh no, Suresh is not the best, and it can get heaty, but that's, people take pride, and like, we are bringing Sandesh from this. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's almost like in Punjabi weddings, or is it a Glenfiddich 12 or a 18 which they're serving at the bar counter, or how many chaat counters do you have? So it's almost like that, or some
Right.
special chaatwala is coming. It's almost like that with the sweets.
Okay. So, I mean, from what you're talking about, weddings seem to be like a big culinary battleground. I mean, in terms of what you serve, how much you serve, where it's kind of served from. So, is there anything that we can talk about that part of it? Because that sounds quite fascinating.
Yeah, wedding's important. Again, as I go by the Holy Trinity, which is the March, Mishti, and Mangsho, this is what actually determines how good or bad your in-laws or whatever your Bharati thinks your wedding food is like, right? So, but before we go into this Holy Trinity, or you use this word, we start a dish with a luchi. So the thing is that how inflated the luchi is actually a very good sign of how good the caterer is, right? The more spherical they are,
Okay.
the fitted into, yeah. So if you get deflated luchis, I think people are like, yeah, this marriage is not going to last. These people don't give us enough importance. So that's how it starts with, right? The luchis need to be as spherical as possible and as hot as possible. And then it goes into the fish fries fish. The fish fries fish is very important. It's a bhetki, and it has to be like alabaster white bhetki, which has probably been reared in some French spring water or something, because people are very, very sensitive about that fish fry. If it's a bad fish fry, then you say half of the people would agree this marriage is not going to last. And then it goes to the mutton. The mutton cannot be chewy, fibrous, nothing. It should be the littlest. It should be the most tender meat from the kid goat with the right balance. It's like Bengalis when they choose meat. It's like it's Japanese with the beef. It's like Wagyu, right? You have the A5 category and this 5. It's the right amount of marbling has to be there so that this, that. So yeah, with the thing is that the tenderness of the meat, and as well as the right amount of meat to fat ratio must be there. Otherwise, again, the old people are disappointed, and then they will be like, it's almost like kisse shadi ho raha hai, that kind of thing. Finally, it goes to the. We don't have now. It's a new innovation, but we didn't have a chart stall and stuff before, so we just concentrated on the main meal, and then it's finally the meat, the quality of the mishti doi and the rasagola's quality. And actually, end of weddings, I've seen people having rashogolla contest actually, which ends up being fun as well as fatal, because the rashogolla can also choke you. So that's pretty much it. I've seen literal human beings having 20 rasagollas and being alive the
Wow.
next day. So that's pretty much it. So weddings are a big thing. I think in every culture we eat weddings are a big thing food wise. Uh, I guess in the north it is more with the dancing and the sangeet and the mehendis and all. I think we didn't have till recently. It's more of a somber fest, but I think to make people happy, the food was developed as the source of most of the joy. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds actually pretty stressful, and I can imagine both sides of the family going into needing therapy after a wedding if what if the luchis are kind of not plated properly. But that sounds quite challenging actually compared to other
Yeah, I mean,
weddings.
yeah, imagine if you both go for the same menu. I mean, you have the girl side first and the guy side next. If you try to go for the same sweet shop and they've run out of material and that's stressful. Supervising the caterer to make sure the luchis are exactly spherical, maybe going with a geometry box set and measuring them, it's pretty thing. And tasting the kid goat, making sure they're not putting in some old goat or something, which we have a word for. It's called a boka pata or a buro pata, which is like putting a very old goat, and that's like the worst kind of meat you can have. Yeah, I mean, I think both families, including the bride and groom, have to go counseling after that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, right now is it a buffet setup or do you have seatings? I mean, like the Parsis actually do where
Yeah, so initially, long time ago, it used to be when I was young. It used to be like we used to call it batches, right? In a first batch, and usually had 3 to 4 batches. Where the initial batch is the people you don't know well. It's usually people, the grooms, people from his office or something, his bosses and all, or something. You just feed them and get rid of them as fast as possible. Where the third, fourth batch would be where the bride and groom actually eat, and the rest of the family eat, because you're going around supervising people and saying like. Eat well, अच्छे से खाना,
Hmm.
that kind of thing, right? The thing is that if you and Bengalis learned something that if you serve something which is too good, it runs out by the second batch. So I think at some point they just stop serving anything prawn related, because prawns can be eaten. A human being can eat
Yeah.
like 100 prawns also, and there would be no stopping. So I think initial people made the mistake of introducing into the menu, and then by second batch it's completely gone, and the third and fourth batch people are like, yeah, there's no point living anymore. So they have stopped that. But yeah, so batches food might used to run out because sometimes you underestimate and thing. But now they've done it the buffet system. So you have banquets and people sitting on a table, and then buffet, and it's a fair thing. It's very Darwinian. You're armed with a fork and knife, and it's every man and woman for itself, and that's pretty much it.
Okay. Okay. Uh, I mean, you're living abroad right now, and I guess you've also traveled quite a bit. How easy is it to find good quality Bengali food internationally?
Yeah, so that's another thing. So interestingly, so I cannot find good quality Bengali food honestly anywhere, because it's hard to get it, because the thing is that Bengalis at the diaspora did not travel outside much till maybe the last one generation. They were pretty happy with their lives and everything was going well for them till last 2 generations, and we are probably the first few generations who are actually venturing out. But on the other hand, Bangladeshis are actually very, very enterprising, and
Hmm.
they're like all over the world.
Right.
Especially in Italy and Rome, every third person you might meet, selling something is a Bangladeshi. So what
That's
I
right.
have
That's right.
done, unfortunately, to survive is actually look for Bangladeshi places, and which would give me some approximation of Bengali food, even when it comes to like the Bay Area of the United States, and especially New York and Jacksonite and all. There's so many Bangladeshi places that is the thing. Even in Singapore, even in Malaysia, and maybe even in a little bit of Italy. And I've never been to the UK, but my friend said, yeah, just go for it. It's nothing. So Bengali food is hard to get, and also the people who go out, since we are not so enterprise minded, opening a restaurant is kind of like frowned upon. It's like, oh my god, you're an engineer, why would you do that? So nobody ever does that, even though they like it. They just suppress it in deep, they decide to open a restaurant, and then they one day just die. And so that's the thing. So not too many enterprising people are there, so unfortunately I can't get that. And so I think the best other solution is that if I live somewhere else, I just have to bring my mother in, and she's a fantastic cook. Yeah, I
Okay,
have tried
okay.
to teach my Punjabi wife also a little bit of Bengali food, and she's okay with it, but she cannot understand the minimalism of it. She just like, this is it. I'm like, yeah, this is it. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay, but I think the sweets have traveled much better. I mean, especially since the tin rosgolas, at least for sure. But I have
Yeah,
a sense that those have other sweets also have traveled quite well.
I don't know. I mean, at least in Singapore and uh, the Bay Area, which San Francisco and all, which are the two places I travel the most actually for work and I stay. I have not been able to find it, but I think the Rasgulla kind of covers everybody's cravings enough. And Haldiram is done. I'm not sponsored by Haldiram by any way, but Haldiram does such a great job at just packaging, and that it just tastes so great after that. I
Are
think
you saying
that is enough
Haldiram's
for
is
craving.
better than the Kesi Das? Because I think Kesi Das was the first guy
I
to
don't know.
begin.
Sorry. Okay, before I get into people with pitchforks attacking me, I just arrived in India yesterday after 2 years. Maybe I'll go to Kesidas and have it. And last 2 years, I've been having a Haldiram during the lockdown. So I apologize for anybody who's offended here. But but it's a good substitute for having nothing, or it's a pretty damn good substitute. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably
Okay,
having it. Yeah, from the shop would be much better. Yeah.
okay. What about ingredients? I mean, is it easy to recreate Bengali meals abroad? I mean, I know the fishes might be a bit of a problem.
Yeah, again, that's the thing. It's like the fishes. Like again, you have very enterprising Bangladeshi people who have actually shops all over, and they get the hilsas. And so in Singapore, I actually don't have a problem. So as a person who does not cook, I actually wouldn't even attempt to do anything with the hilsa. So that's the thing. But again, the Bangladeshi diaspora travel, and we have a very big overlap in fishes. Actually, completely high overlap, because a part of the Ganga becomes, I think, the Padma, and another becomes the Hooghly, which flows to us and flows to them. So the fishes are very easy to get. So basically, you just have to look for a Indian mart in all these places, which is probably owned by a Bangladeshi, and you will get every ingredient. So thanks to them, we get to eat what we want. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess the rices and all are safe. You won't get Govind Bhog, but the other
Yeah. So
rices.
we have switched to basmati, just standard basmati rice or something for us. Yeah. So you cannot be too picky if you're living abroad. Honestly, yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's like sometimes at some point for work, I was actually living in the middle of Germany in a really small place, and over there, if I got any type of Indian food with any amount of spices, I was pretty glad about that. So yeah, even if I could get Pakistani food, which is essentially the same, a little bit niharis and all, I would be pretty happy with that. So yeah, you just learn to compromise a little bit when you're living abroad. Yeah.
Okay. So when you come back to Calcutta, I mean, you've lived abroad for many years here, but I'm sure you've made trips back to Calcutta as well. Uh, what would be your sense of, okay, I have to eat this first?
Okay, so yeah, so basically, I am from the south part of Calcutta, and there are some shops I've kind of grown up with. So first thing, I landed yesterday, and I actually got myself a biryani. That's it. I have to eat that, and there are two shops which are good. And even at 12 p.m. midnight, I actually landed around 10, and I went there and I got myself a mutton biryani, which is kind of unique with its with the potato and the egg, the aloo and the egg. I got myself those. That is a thing I really, really need to do. Once I'm done with that, it's about this street kati rolls, which I need to have. I avoid puchka or our golgappas nowadays because you don't know. So there is a thing called like the Delhi belly, we have a thing called the NRI stomach. And initially I used
Okay.
to like like the Delhi belly, there's NRI stomach, and then the thing is that I used to disregard it. And like I'm like, oh, I'm from the streets, nothing's gonna happen to me. But I think 7 or 8 years of staying abroad, I had like really bad experience with food, which I had late at night, and or like random water in the thing. So I kind of try to avoid this. I know people will hate me for saying this, that I don't eat the puchka anymore on the streets because it was pretty bad. So I try to avoid. So any cooked food I'm trying to look for, it's like the kati roll and this chicken cutlet you can get here in this special shop called Campari in South Calcutta. That's really nice. So this kind of thing. And Indian
It's called
Chinese.
Campari.
Yeah, Campari. It's called Campari because nobody knew how to pronounce Campari that back then. I think so. It's like the Aperol spritz, that Campari. Yeah, yeah. Or and Kolkata has very good Indian Chinese, so that's something I
Hmm.
always look forward to, and which is very hard for me to find even in Singapore or anywhere else in the world. Very good chili chicken and a very good fried rice. Calcutta has, because it had a significant Chinese immigrant and presence here, and it's dwindling, but it is pretty significant. It's the only city with a Chinatown, so that's something also I look for. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, let's just touch upon that because I think we're almost running out of time. But uh,
Mhm.
is there a lot of Chinese outside of Tangara? I mean, are you likely? Because I found just one or two restaurants, older restaurants. I forget the name, but one was on the first floor, and it's one of the oldest restaurants. But generally, is Calcutta Chinese available outside Tangara?
Yeah, I mean, there are. So if you go to Park Street, right, I think it's by the same people. They usually have one shop. I might be wrong, but I think there's this particular lady. She has like these three shops, and one of them is located in Park Street called Tung Fong. And it's pretty popular. It's just located next to Mocambo and Peter Cat, which are like the very Calcutta places to eat on Park Street. So that's usually where I go. Or I could go to Tangara as well. That's the thing. And then you have, I mean, non-Chinese origin people cooking Chinese food, which is not too bad all around South Calcutta as well. So they do a pretty decent job, more decent job than I have eaten Indian Chinese anywhere else in the world. Yeah. So, yeah. So like
Okay.
in Singapore, if they do the chili chicken correctly and the fried rice correctly, the chow mein or the Hakka chow mein, I mean, the names are atrocious. I mean, there's no like origin of this name, like Gobi Manchurian, and there's no historical origins of the name. Once I been to around China and all, I know, and Taiwan, I know this, but they screw up one of these things. So it's only here where they do everything correctly. Yeah, that's what I have
Okay.
feel. Yeah.
Okay. Arpan, thank you so much for this fascinating conversation and like taking us into the world of Bengali cuisine. I don't know about all the listeners who've been listening in and whether they have access to it or not, but I am definitely in the mood for a Rosgola right now, and I am definitely going to go and hunt for this. What was it? The with the choc with the Nolan Gold filling.
Oh, it's a Shondish with a Nolan Good filling.
The
Yeah, you
Sandesh
need to. Yeah,
with the
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if we'll get it in Bombay, but I will
Mm-hmm.
certainly hunt for it because that sounds
Mm-hmm.
absolutely unique and fascinating. So thank you for being a part of this conversation. Thank you to all viewers for joining us and for watching the show. And back to you, PILF.
What a wonderful discussion. Hope everyone had a great experience. Thank you, Mr. Antoine Lewis, Miss Anahita Dhondy, and Mr. Arpan Roy for being PILF guests. Join us for an intense masterclass, Shakti, the 51 Pithas, after a 15-minute break at 11:15 a.m. We thank our title partner, Vishwakarma Publications.